The View from Halfway Down by Secretariat, or Alison Tayfel. The weak breeze whispers nothing, the water screams sublime. His feet shift, teeter-totter, deep breaths stand back, it's time. Toes untouch the overpass, soon he's waterbound. Eyes locked shut, but peek to see the view from halfway down. A little wind, a summer sun, a river rich and regal, a flood of fond endorphins bring a calm that knows no equal. You're flying now, you see things much clearer than from the ground. It's all okay, or it would be, were you not now halfway down. Thrashed to break from gravity, what now could slow the drop? All I'd give for toes to touch the safety back at top. But this is it, the deed is done, silence drowns the sound. Before I leaped I should have seen the view from halfway down. I really should have thought about the view from halfway down. I wish I could have known about the view from halfway down. And nothing more. But this was never how it was going to end, was it? BoJack Horseman was a show produced on Netflix from 2014 to 2020. The penultimate episode of the series was entitled The View from Halfway Down. It is one of the most terrifying of the show. BoJack is largely a tragicomedy. It balances the dramatic elements with zany antics, ridiculous situations, and a bizarre world created almost entirely for animal puns, but at the core of the show is about damage and how people deal with it. BoJack himself is a former child star, an alcoholic narcissist who keeps trying to prove that it wasn't his fault, that the actions he took were driven by something else. In TVHD, I wonder if that acronym was on purpose, his actions have finally caught up with him, and he's forced to confront one of the most terrifying things in the world, death, in all its multifaceted glory. The episode purports itself as a dream that BoJack is having, a recurring dream where he meets up with all the people that he has lost over the years, and they have a dinner party. The idea for this episode had been kicked around the writer's room for years, and the dream had been mentioned by BoJack earlier in the season, albeit without any details. There are a number of metaphorical images in the dream that depict aspects of his life, the things he regrets and the way forward, but there are also some things that have no real meaning, just like an actual dream. While initially it feels like everything is fairly innocent, there is a ticking time bomb that goes off in the first act, as a puddle of black goo drips down from the ceiling. This is the source of much of the dread and the horror in the episode. At first it's small, its impact's negligible. It's an annoyance, something to comment on like someone would a cloudy day or an unpleasant smell. Over time it grows and grows until it becomes impossible to ignore, and even with everything else going on it takes over, and by that point it's too late. Every bad thing that BoJack has done, all his fears and doubts, be it death, failure, or even redemption, are all personified by this living object that has destroyed the dinner party dream, the safe haven he had built for all the lost souls in his memory. However, while this is terrifying to BoJack, to the rest of the characters, the ones who have actually experienced it, it's not as bad. Sarah Lynn jumps in willingly. Zach Braff is afraid, although spends more time lamenting about unfinished projects than he does trying to escape an easily preventable fate, fulfilling a Hollywood stereotype. Secretariat is scared as he recounts the titular poem, but is reassured by Herb that whatever happens, it'll be okay. Crackerjack willingly walks away, and his mother simply disappears, just as she left him in life, there one minute, gone the next. Herb similarly has accepted his fate, being absorbed into the darkness willingly, just as in real life he had accepted his cancer diagnosis. It might have been what actually killed him, but it wasn't about the facts, but about the emotions. BoJack, though, is terrified, running down an empty hallway that stretches forever, not simply unwilling to accept death, but trying to do anything he can to avoid it. The true irony, of course, is that nothing he can do in this dream, this coma world, really matters. According to one of the writers, the whole episode takes place in 30 seconds of real time, as BoJack is drowning in the pool. I've gotten a little ahead of myself, however, so let's start with the beginning. The very first image is a blurry fisheye lens, the audience looking through a peephole at BoJack's life. It represents how, despite seemingly knowing a lot about other people, be it those in our own lives or depictions in film or television show, in the end we only have a tiny window of insight into their life, a distorted picture of a complicated person. BoJack is not alone, however, as he arrives with Sarah Lynn, or at least the image of Sarah Lynn that BoJack has in his mind, one from a very long time ago. Many characters in BoJack Horseman are obsessed with their past, unable to deal with trauma, or confront the things that are holding them back. As the series progresses, this changes, and characters move on and grow, but BoJack is someone who never really did that. He's always running away, from the first season to the last, and it's only in the final few episodes that things really catch up with him. BoJack's mother greets him, again represented by a memory of herself, not as the delusional dying woman that he last saw her as, but the authoritative figure that dominated his childhood. He has brought flowers as a gift to her, hydrangeas, which can bloom in a number of different colors, although these particular ones are pinky red. This can indicate they grow in highly alkaline or inhospitable soil, just like his own childhood. His mother reacts to the gift with sarcasm, dismissing it as dirt for inside. Despite all the years gone by, Bojack is still desperate for his mother's approval, even if she happens to be dead. The intro to BoJack Horseman is quite iconic, although this particular iteration has a much different tone than most other episodes. Instead of simply depicting a day in the life of an alcoholic partygoer, it shows flashes of images of all the people that Bojack has hurt, and that he's lost, again showing that he hasn't been able to move on from his past, and of course it ends with him falling in the pool. After the intro is over, it cuts to an ashtray with a lipstick-stained cigarette, and a few splashes of black goo. His gift is then placed over the dirty spot, covering it up, but for only the briefest moment, as the flowers begin to be covered by the thick substance. It's not commented on by either Bojack or his mother, but even early on there's the implication that there is something very wrong, worse than an average dream. There's then the ever-loved animal puns, as a bird flew in through the window. In this case, it's a person-sized bird, who also happens to be a rosy red color. When discussing this episode, the writers mentioned that not every little thing has meaning, and the bird was one of the bigger ones that wasn't intended to represent an aspect of Bojack's life. They were merely a device to propel the story forward. Their color is notable because they are in effect an enormous red herring. There are a number of pictures on the walls, mostly of Bojack's family, which makes sense as this is supposed to be his mother's house. However, the one that is directly in center frame, inspired by David Hockney's Portrait of an Artist, Pool with Two Figures, depicting Bojack looking down at himself in the water. This painting has been seen in the series numerous times, as it was displayed prominently on the wall of his office, but it takes on another more sinister implication here. While it's not been established yet that Bojack is drowning, there are already many hints about the true nature of the dream. One of those is the difference between the earlier iterations of the painting and this one, as in both the original and the normal version, the Bojack in the pool is swimming. However, in this one, he is floating, drowning. After some brief dialogue with other characters, he bumps into Corduroy, who after describing his grisly death tells Bojack that, "You're gonna have to get over that, buddy." This episode wears its themes on its sleeves, that continuing reliving the past doesn't help anyone, and learning from it and moving on is the only way to make progress in life, which is again the point of the show. It's not about dying, despite the very death-heavy episode, it's about the high cost of living. Finally, the characters arrive at the first major set piece of the episode, the dinner party. Every character is eating or drinking the last thing they had before they died, with Zach Braff as the waiter, as it was him that was eaten. Also notable is the chair that Bojack is situated in, which looks an awful lot like the inside of a coffin, whereas everyone else has plainer, shorter ones. That's when Bojack notices the black oozing liquid, and realizes that maybe this isn't just like every other dream. It's accompanied by a suitably ominous musical sting. Bojack complains about the water he has been given tasting like chlorine, although it's also notable the bottle is the same one that was filled with vodka while he was in rehab, a reminder of his failures in attempting to fix himself. It's replaced by an identical bottle, again reinforcing the theme that the important thing is acknowledging and working through trauma, and by avoiding it, all that happens is that it repeats. The discussion between the other characters are ultimately meaningless, beyond being an extension of what Bojack believes about them, not necessarily who they are as characters. They exist to give him something to talk or think about, and in some cases to highlight his own insecurities. Sarah Lynn especially demonstrates Bojack's quest for a meaningful life. While he is hedonistic and excessive, spending most of his time of the show living in debauchery, there is a growing sense that he wants something more. With his Secretariat film, he truly believed in the project, and took efforts to make it as good as he could. And then in the end the director was replaced, and his part was filled with AI, making all his efforts feel pointless. Despite this, he wants it to be worth something, just like he wants his original sitcom to be worthwhile, and Sarah Lynn's argument is that he is sacrificed, and thus the end result was worth it. Sarah Lynn also claims that everyone's accusing her of being a bad person, which has been a constant refrain in Bojack's life. However, despite claiming that everyone else is calling her that, they didn't say anything like it. Bojack is projecting his own belief that other people believe that he's bad, and that he acts with that assumption, committing selfish and destructive behavior because it is what is expected of him. It's a toxic, self-fulfilling cycle. Secretariat and Bojack's father arrive, amalgamated into one person, as so often happens in dreams. Bojack always wished he could look up to his father, that he was someone worthy of respect, so here he has finally become someone that Bojack could admire, by literally being someone else. This doesn't stop the arguing with his mother, however, which is an unassailable constant in Bojack's life. He then coughs up a glob of black goo, and the drip slowly starts to increase in intensity. A zoom out then shows the growing puddle on the ceiling. Bojack then claims he's going to wake up, that everything is going to go back to normal. But then the show begins, the biggest set piece. And things are not normal. Sarah Lynn then starts her performance, wearing the same outfit she did to Herb's funeral. Bojack tries to apologize for everything he did to her, but she rejects the apology, again just like Herb did. Bojack just wants one apology to solve everything, but it's unfortunately too late. Just before Sarah Lynn jumps in, she plugs her nose, just like someone would do before jumping in a pool. Bojack and Secretariat step out of the performance for a smoke on the bridge that he jumped off of, all the while the moon stares down at them. Here Bojack's dad comes out and tells them that he really cared, that he loved Bojack and his mother, and he just put up walls and tried hard not to. This is what Bojack always wanted to hear. His entire life has been a quest to get people to love him, and more than that, to tell him that they love him. Then there's the turn that the audience has known has been coming for almost the entire episode, when Secretariat says that Bojack's not going to wake up, and he sees himself in the pool. Bojack has always denied the obvious, so it's no surprise that he refused to accept the reality of the situation until it was almost too late. Bojack begins to panic, and the geography of the room twists and turns, closing in around him. While the show would never end with Bojack taking his own life, him dying from a foolish mistake is well within the realm of possibility. Secretariat then starts his poem, read at the beginning of this review. It's incredibly effective and reflects the reality of many people who realize they could fix every problem in their life, except having jumped. Finally, Bojack is told and accepts there is nothing he can do. The past is the past, and whatever happens will happen. The black goo then manifests as a grasping tentacle and claims his mom, who is the last person he saw die. Herb then gives Bojack an introduction, starting with the films and TV series he's done, the things that he's most proud of, before descending into all the negative things he thinks about himself. Then the terrifying nothing sets in as Herb steps into the goo, proclaiming there is no other side. Bojack flees, just like he's always done, but the house has become subsumed with the black goo, the front hallway erupting in flowers, and the bird transformed into a nightmare beast. He then finds a phone and finally talks to Diane, the person he called in real life, before going back into the pool. He hides under a table, a reference to an earlier scene where he talked to Sarah Lynn, warning her about how terrible show business is, and life in general. The kitchen leads directly to the bridge, to the edge. The phone is wrapped around his neck like a noose, and he finally accepts his fate. Then the inky blackness consumes him. Cut to credits and a flat line, with the final beep of a heart rate telling the audience that he's not quite gone and setting up the actual finale. The View from Halfway Down is still largely a comedy, but the elements it discusses are both serious and terrifying. Death has been a huge part of BoJack Horseman, but this is the first time it's felt real. The amorphous goo is a powerful tool that creates a growing sense of dread in the audience and is a compelling visual. While there are arguments about what the best episode of the show is, this is it for me. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe, and, as always, be well.